Everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes. Every Thursday I host an episode of either Behind the Scenes or Transformation Time. My name is Diana Lizarazo and today's guest speaker is Giancarlo Cataldo. He is my husband and he's going to be connecting from downstairs because I couldn't figure out how to squeeze him in the shot. So I'm excited to have him on. We're going to get to hear one of the projects we've been working on. And so that's what it's going to be. So we have our guest speakers, our real estate investors that are here to help you by sharing their stories. And on Behind the Scenes, we will be getting to talk about we'll be talking about the project we've worked on, and you'll get to hear about the numbers. And the fun part is all the problems that were encountered. And so let's get Giancarlo on. And actually, just before I actually do that, I also wanted to tell you guys, if you are interested in sharing one of your projects, your real estate projects, send me a DM. And I would love to feature you on my show. So I just want to put that out there too. Or even for Transformation Time. Definitely send me a DM because beginner, intermediate, advanced doesn't matter. We're all about learning here. So everyone wants to hear about the kind of things that you've gone through so that others can try to not create those problems for themselves, right? So let's get Giancarlo on. Just give me I don't know if it worked. 1 second, guys. Oh, accept again. Okay, there we go. Okay, we have, there we go.
There we go.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
I haven't been on this.
How are you? Thanks for coming on. So like I said, Giancarlo is my husband. And do you want to just start off with just telling them what you do, what your experience is first?
Yeah, so my name is Giancarlo Cataldo. I'm Diana's husband. I have a renovation business that I've been running for about 8-9 years. I'm a GC and I work with a lot of investors and homeowners.
I can definitely tell you guys I've converted him over to the investor side. We used to have all clients. Now he's always asking me to get him a project and just to work on projects for ourselves. So I'm happy that I was able to convert him over. Pardon?
Investors are so much easier to work with.
You get to deal with empty houses.
Yes, which is a bonus.
Although the one we're going to be talking about actually is one where we were dealing with some issues with not an empty house.
Correct.
So do you want to tell? We're going to be talking about the Hamilton project. Do you want to just give a summary of what it was? So what was the type of property and what our end product was supposed to be?
Yeah, so this was a single-family home, a detached single-family home. It was kind of I would say, somewhat of a hoarder house, but not really. It was the project wasn't huge, but I mean there was some stuff that we had to do. So the previous owner had converted it from a 3-bedroom back to a 1-bedroom, and they had a big, huge open space for their office and stuff. So once we took over, what we did is we added some walls, added some closets, converted back to a 3-bedroom plus a den. We redid and expanded their main bathroom. We also did just the regular paint and touch-ups and stuff. Once we started the work, we figured out that the basement was leaking, so we had to do some waterproofing in the basement as well. And of course, once we started opening up walls, then we figured out that most of the pipes were lead because there was a very old house. So then we had to convert everything back to, so we converted it down to PEX.
Yeah, so this project, I'm going to put a little bit more onto this so this is a single family home. Basement, we couldn't due to code to add a secondary unit. We also didn't see, so there was no purpose in adding that amount of, putting so much money into it because the basement was unfinished. And the amount of money it would have cost us to do that just wouldn't have benefited us. Same thing, we actually had a big workshop in the backyard, which it was same thing, half unfinished. I would say that one was like half unfinished. Same thing. It wasn't worth the money to bring it up to par to even make that back unit. To make that into, we could have technically made it into a 2-bedroom apartment if we wanted to. But the amount of money it would have cost, it wasn't worth for us to actually get it done. We wouldn't have gotten the value from it, specifically in the area of Hamilton. I don't know if we said it was in Hamilton. This is a Hamilton project. And actually, I'll talk about the numbers because I'm the numbers person. I don't think Giancarlo knew anything except for the reno budget, really.
Which was
so
tight.
Pardon?
I said, which was tight.
Yes. So we bought this property for $500,000, and we bought it for $500,000. We did it with private money, and our holding costs were around, I think around like, let's say $2,000 a month, maybe $2,500, let's say, to be safe. That's what our holding costs were. And so this was a flip. I think I also forgot to tell you guys that this was a flip. And so we ended up selling it for $754,000. That being said, so renovations were, with taxes, I believe we're around $70,000. Was it the final number?
Closer to 80, yeah.
Or 80? 80,000. Yeah, so $80,000 for renovations. And we were using all private money. This one was all, so everything was all private money. So none of our money was in it. So it wasn't more expensive. So sorry, that's not the $2,500 was just the mortgage and utilities expenses. We were paying other more money. I don't actually remember how much that was. But to let you know that even, and I think this is very important for people to understand, is that even though we got it for $500,000, and to let you know that this property was appraised for $600,000, and when we sold it for $750,000, we did make a little bit more than we expected, but we didn't make a lot. So I wanted to emphasize the range because we profited out of that around $60,000 is how much we made off that property. So I want to share that with you guys because especially in the environment we're in, and that was my estimate was what we bought it for, and at that time, what the prices of houses were worth in that area, that is what I estimated it. And we sold that in November of last year. And that's what, 2022. So to me, in that area, it wasn't a down market. I would say it stabilized from the year before a little bit higher. And that's why we made a little bit more than we expected on that one. But that, yeah, I think that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I just want to make people understand, like, run those numbers on your own and understand, like, a flip is very expensive. And so, yes, that seems like a huge difference between what we bought it and what we sold at. But you have to understand there's so many, and closing twice is expensive too, right? So I just wanted to share that with you guys because, a lot of people are like, holy crap, you made like 150 out of that. No, we made a good like 60K from that. And we were expecting it to be around the 50K mark. So I just want to share that with you guys because I think it's important to understand that flips are expensive and a lot of people do lose a lot of money on flipping because they don't take into because people think, I bought it, for example, at the appraise. I bought it for $600, $80K in renovations, profits. They forget about the rest. They forget about the closing expenses. They forget that you have to consider holding costs and delays maybe happening, which we did have delays. So did you want to talk about, we'll talk about the renovation problem. So what kind of renovation problems did we encounter?
Well, I mean, as soon as they come in the house, first thing I noticed, there was a lot of water damage on the ceilings. And then there was some critters in there, and then the insulation was gone for some of the part. So of course, first thing, usually what we do, especially if we're doing a flip, we look at the bones, the outside, and the roof, which are the most important. because we always tell people like there's no point of putting a bunch of money inside the house when you haven't fixed your roof or your bones, because then it rains and then all your money goes down the down the drain.
100%.
So,
Great point.
yeah, yeah. So what we did is I use this company called Cadillac Roofing, which they're great. So we use them. They always do all the roofs. The guys are phenomenal. They came, they fixed everything. Once that was done, then we could start working on the interior. There was some issues with the interior because the previous owner was still living in the house. So I had to kind of tippy-toe around him to try to get some work done, which was very difficult to do. Then we found,
So
like
let's
I said,
actually talk, sorry, a little bit more about that, because that is something that actually I feel like is important to talk about. That's another, I would say, another reason why why we were able to purchase it at 500, because there were a lot of concessions we needed to make. So one of them was that this was going into a foreclosure. It never went. We bought it before it went there. But the reason why we bought it at such a low price is because we were allowing him to stay for some time to get himself prepared to leave. Just because normally this is very normal with people that are going through a power sale foreclosure type of situation, they don't really believe that it's happening and they close their eyes to it. And so I found out basically a week, 2 weeks before this was happening. So we had to hustle, get everything up and like all the paperwork signed and ready. So again, for example, that's another reason for the price being low, because we needed to get funding quickly. And that's one other thing, right? If you're closing quickly, you need the price to be low enough so you can go quickly to a private and be like, here, we need the funding for this. And they'll say it to you quickly that, yes, you can get this done, right? So that's, for example, another reason why the price was low for the property. And what was the other thing? And yeah, and so for him staying there, so that was something that, and this man was in his 50s, and I mean, he had someone else to help him, but for him to move out was a very slow and tedious process. And so that was where me and Giancarlo really had to like strategize and plan on how to best get the renovations done and work within the circumstances we had. So I think where did we start? Like, I think we started clearing out basically we had him clear out the second floor, right? And like, you guys also had to help with like the big stuff and also to, I mean, get the project moving, right?
yeah. So the majority of the stuff that we did help clear out the most of the stuff in the second floor, because that's where most of our work was going to be done. Especially because we have to convert the 1 bedroom back into 3 bedrooms. And there was like an old style chimney that we had to close up and get rid of some brick work and masonry work that was there, and we had to remove the bathroom, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to remove all that, we had to help move like these humongous heavy desks and cabinets and junk and just and wine bottles and more wine bottles and lots of wine bottles. The guy was a collector, and he had lots of unique trinkets and lots of them. So that's where we started, right? So we started in the main unit, in the second floor to start the renovations there.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, this was basically a hoarder house, but not, I would say, like garbage, like that. Like he had piles of things, but he had piles of actually like collector items, but it was like piles everywhere. Or his business, he had lots of like business paperwork and stuff. So there was a lot of that. And so again, one of the concessions we made was we allowed him to have the back storage, the back workshop as his storage area. So he was moving everything from the house temporarily into there, and then until he was ready to put it into a storage room. And it was just, again, because things were moving so quickly, we're just like, take that area, we're not working on it. So, have that, and at least we can get the spaces we need. And then and then slowly make the transition into, which we paid for the storage. So we paid for the storage to get all the stuff into storage units for him. So I mean, what what things actually, because for example, the leaks and stuff, we knew about that coming in. That was like estimated into the price. Did we have any, and I can't actually remember, what were the unforeseen things that were things that we didn't know? Was there anything that, or really was just kind of like the owner?
So a lot of it had to do with the owner because there was a lot of things like it was really hard working around them and trying to get stuff moved and whatnot. The unforeseen things that we saw that was actually I was quite surprised was the old style of piping that was underneath the flooring in the bathroom. Because once we removed they had a bathtub before we transformed it into a three-piece with a stand-up shower, just to utilize more of the space. And then once we got to doing the shower, I realized I'm like these pipes look like lead. And then we started digging, and I ended up removing pretty much the whole floor for the bathroom, and removing all the piping that was in there. We had to remove so we try not to disturb the ceiling from the main floor because it was laid in plaster. So what we did is we removed all the piping from inside from in between the floors, and then we changed everything over to PEX and put proper ABS because again it was all cast iron and the old style because the house is from 1908, I believe, or 1960.
1978 or something? Yeah, I forget. Or no, you're right. That was a century home, right? It was a century home.
It was a century home. So I believe it was 1908 or 1917 or somewhere on there. Once I knew that the stacks were cast iron, so I was already expected to change those, but I thought it would at least be copper, so I was surprised that it wasn't. So then that when we changed all the stuff over to PEX and ABS. So that was one of the more.
Sorry, go on, finish.
So that was one of the more time-consuming things, right? Because you don't want to disturb the pipes and stuff, and because it's not very good for you, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just gonna say, actually, I would say like an unforeseen thing that we saw was, for example, you're saying in the bathroom. I remember you telling me about that the way the plumbing was done, they were going through structural beams and cutting them, right? So you had to fix that up to give it more support. So that was something that was unforeseen. Actually, we did have to increase the budget for our renovations, and it wasn't. Now that I remember, it wasn't related to the renovations. Really, that was the issue, like that foreseen, but it was the issues that were having to work around him, which it ended up making the renovation time a little bit longer, which cut into our budget. And also, for example, I remember one of the things that I wanted to get done and we didn't get done was that bathroom on the main floor. I wanted to revamp that one, and we had to scrap that because things were just going slower and it was just eating into the budget because like that, when you have an empty house, right, you're able to get in there quick, get things done and work quickly. But with what we had to work with, it was, I think we even had days where I think you didn't even go into work. Were there some days that you couldn't work? I can't remember.
There was probably about a week and a half that I didn't even bother going because I just couldn't work around them anymore. This project should have, we almost like pretty close to doubled in time for the actual rental, just because we had to run around and deal with moving stuff here, moving stuff there. I would ask the gentleman, 2 weeks in advance, please clear this room, and then by the time we get to that room, everything would still be the same, and then he'd have the excuse that like, oh, my son, he's working late and he can't help me, or oh, I can't, it's too heavy. And then we tell him, okay, like we'll move it for you. Oh no, you can't move it for me because it's not organized yet. So there was a lot of pushback from I just think he was the previous owner was still in denial, and he still believed that it was his home.
Yes.
And that's why like he was not cooperating at all. And it got to a point where I was kind of like, I'm just about to leave this rental. It was that one wasn't a pleasant one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that you were super frustrated with that one, and I felt that I had to get more involved with the mitigation. I think so. That's I think a great thing to talk about is that, and I think also great in the sense of that one of the reasons why I find it important to actually have that distance, whereas like that Giancarlo's on site having to work. And in general, either like with neighbors, you got to keep the peace, but keep it friendly. That's Giancarlo's job. Same thing, like in this case, you have someone living in there that is being a little tougher, and like that. Giancarlo's not really able to get the work done the way he needs to get it done. And so me being on the outside, I think really helped the situation out because I could kind of mediate and help and reduce that stress for you. Do you feel like that's true? Like, did I help a little?
No, yeah, absolutely. Because, like I said, it came to a point where the homeowner and I are kind of, the previous homeowner and I were kind of at a standstill. And like I try to help out and do as much as possible, but this particular job came to a point where I was just kind of like I'm about to call it quits and just enough's enough. And then like it was great because then so I was able to argue with the guy and tell him, you need to move this needs to be moved, blah blah. And then you came in at a much softer, and calmer tone, and then you kind of explained to him. So we kind of played like good cop, bad cop kind of thing, which he seemed to take into and actually listen a lot better when you spoke with him than with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and which I have to say, usually it's you don't play bad cop because like that normally, I mean, in this case, the way we had to work was different because generally in other projects, I feel that if anything, you're always the good cop because like that you're keeping the peace around because our goal is obviously to not piss off people so that we can make the renovation smooth or the flip smooth because I can tell you that people do get frustrated with big renovations going on next door. So normally it is like that. And I mean, I think it's this, like you said, the renovations were quite small. We weren't impacting neighbors. Neighbors weren't really getting up, everyone was good in that sense. Really like that. It was more the issues like trying to manage that previous owner because he was still living in there.
Yeah. And like I said, it's very important to keep the peace with the neighbors, with the homeowners, with the investors, whoever you're dealing with. And like I said, like I was normally if you're doing a big project, this is a little tip, right? Get a bottle of wine, go to the lever on the left, get a bottle of wine, go to the neighbor on the right, present yourself. Me as a contractor, I present myself, say, hey, my name is Giancarlo, I'm from GC Reno. We're going to be doing some work here. If it happens to, we're making too much noise and, you have a meeting at work or whatever, come on over, knock on me. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. We'll stop for a little bit, right? We'll take lunch or whatever and try to work with them. And just that little bit of, and I mean, and we do that anyways, but just that little bit of presenting yourself and letting them know that we're not there just at the start, that we can also work around them. It helps tremendously. Like you'd be surprised how much that helps. We've had many instances before on our other flips where the the homeowners are like, they come knock on the door, be like, hey, I got a meeting between 10 and 12. Can you keep it down? We're like, no problem, right? We'll take a 2-hour lunch, right? Not a big deal. And you'd be surprised because like, there's some things that people don't like, but then they'll let it slide. Like if we're making noise a little bit too late, a lot of times they'll let it slide because they're like, okay, we've been good with them the whole time. And so it's always good to get to know your neighbors before you do your flips and burrs and all that stuff. And present yourself, even if whether you're the homeowner or the contractor, present yourself, speak to them, be clear with what you're doing, and then and always have a way for them to reach you and vice versa.
100%. And yeah, I wanted to reiterate that part because that is the important part. Because if you don't present yourself and you don't give a number, if they're too shy to come to you and talk to you because they don't know you, who are they going to go to? They'll just go to the city and let the city take care of you.
An inspector, right?
Yeah, like the city will take care of you, right? And sometimes it's not about anything like bad. It could be that like that they're just shy, like. Whereas, like, if you give them, you open up and you say, oh, hey, like, you open up and say, like, tell me whatever is the issues, like, let us know, we can solve it. And they'll come because you've already opened the doors. But if you don't even present yourself and you don't give them a way to communicate with you, they could, like, it could be like shyness, but they're getting irritated. Like, imagine they're shy. They don't want to talk to you. But they're getting angrier and angrier and angrier as the project goes through. Because vibrations are annoying, dust is annoying. Like you don't want to live in that in like around that habitat to say, and they'll just get to a point where they're going to just talk to the city, where it's like if they knew or they've already been presented where they've given that comfort that, oh, you like, hey, oh, I got to know you, seem like a nice guy, like I can definitely, you seem approachable, talkable, yeah, let's do this, I can definitely talk to you, then they'll do it, right? So I think great that you brought that up, because I think that's monumental, to be honest, as why we're successful with our flips, because I do hear lots of people have neighbors getting pissed off, delaying it through permits, delaying it or trying to stop you in some way.
Yeah,
and I think actually
sabotage.
another thing, pardon?
Sorry, yeah, so yeah, some people will try to sabotage.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate enough that we've never had that any of those issues, because, like I said, we always present ourselves. Diana goes and presents herself. I'll go when I start the work and I present myself, and we always mediate and tell the neighbors next door and be like, hey, you know what? We're doing some renos. We're going to be making some noise. If it's too much, let me know, right? We'll work around you, and then we'll fix some stuff. And even like even when I'm doing garbage runs, right? Like when it's time to, if I get the bin in or if I'm putting garbage in the truck, I'll knock at the neighbor. I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go to the garbage shop. You want to throw something up for you? I don't have much room, but I'll throw something up for you. And you'd be surprised how much that goes above and beyond. Like they'll appreciate us so much that like they'll when they see you, like you say, hey, good morning, how are you? I've had neighbors, they bring me coffee. I'm like, I'm not even working at their house. They'll bring me coffee, right? Some neighbors, they'll bring lunch. They'll bring sometimes we get like a KFC or whatever that we've gotten from neighbors, just because we're there and we show our face, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's great that you said that, because it is true. You just don't know how those little things go a long way. And like you said, you even get like freebies out of it, like some little freebies even come.
Yeah.
So it's just,
I work
yeah, I
for
think
food,
that's,
so.
I know our neighbors give us pierogies. We work for pierogies,
Oh my
actually.
God.
Amazing, delicious, garlicky. Oh my God.
I like how you say we, but I'm the one who goes and shovels the snow.
I know, he does
Just
the
FYI.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does the work, and I get to
He
benefit
reaps
because they give us like
the
this
benefits.
massive plate. So back to the project. Okay, so we spoke about, yeah, like the neighbors. I think that was very important. That's something. Anything else that we wanted to discuss? Any of the problems or things that we weren't aware of that let's say changed the way our project worked, specifically obviously to renovations, because I know the rest of the stuff, it was on me.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing major, right? I mean, there was some issues with a little bit of the HVAC. That's stuff that we have to fix that I didn't foresee, but once we see it, we can't unsee it. So like we have to fix it, right? The water line, right? The water line, we didn't notice it did have a leak, so then we had to come and call the city to stop it, and then we had to change the valve. And but like stuff that usually happens when you're doing flips, things that are unforeseen. That's why you should always keep a little side money when you're doing your flips, because things will arise, and at least I know for Diane and myself, we can't just close an eye on it. Like we have to fix it, right? Especially because it's not going to be it's going to be somebody else's home in the long run, and then why not fix something when you're there and you can, right?
Yeah, and actually something that I remembered that I wanted to that I think that's important that we do is that everything that needs permits, we do it with permits. And I think that's also very important. I think even more now, I think for some reason, I can't remember, now it's even more important to do things with permits. Oh, that's why, because the cities are making changes. And I think they're, to be honest, trying to liquidate as much money as they can, because the city's like dying with, like, needs money, because, but because I know lots of people like to do things without permits, but then the issues are, for example, like if the neighbors complain, now you're getting the city coming into your house, and if you're not doing permits, and usually, to be honest, the permits aren't that much compared to the rest of the project. That being said, we also do work on like very big rundown, like this is our specialty. Like we love like the bigger the
Yeah.
disaster, the better. This one actually, I would say, is like, if anything, this was not a big disaster project for us. This was actually a very little project. So the problem for us in this one wasn't actually the renos, I would say. It was actually the previous owner was the main issues that we had for this one. But like that, I just wanted to say that because we always get permits for everything, and I think that
The law.
that's what they're
I
going
mean, yeah,
to.
it's the law, and you, I mean, you'll save yourself the headache. Uh, Especially like, I mean, for us, we're kind of different because Diana does the investor side and I do the renovation side, and so she knows that I'm not going to cut corners and do any of that stuff. Especially because even if it was for Diana and she said cut corners, I'd be like, no, babe, sorry, it's going to be done right. Because at the end of the day, it's my name on the job. But not everybody's like that, and you will get some contractors that will cut some corners. I've seen it many a times. Actually, these last probably 2 months, my main work has been going to other finished projects and fixing other contractor stuff. But with that said, once you like, if you get your permits are not that expensive, and at the end it covers like it's CYOA, right? Because the inspector will come in, he'll check, he'll be like, okay, your framing's done right. If you're doing load bearing, he'll look at it and be like, yeah, it's done right. Because for example, if you take out a load bearing wall and you don't know what you're doing, and you have no permits and your house collapses, good luck finding the contractor that did it for you. You're not going to find him because he's going to disappear, and you're going to be stuck with a big bill because your house is going to be on the floor, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's very important to get your permits and have someone that's qualified to do it, right?
Yes, I think that's a great point that you actually bring that up for people that aren't, like, let's say for me, I would say like I'm like, yeah, we work together, but I would say like that you have the knowledge. So in our case, like I'm not doing the renovation, so I don't know the full extent. And lots of investors hire people to do the work. And I have heard of exactly what you're saying. I don't know if that what they did needed renovations done, but sorry, permits done.
Mm-hmm.
But what did happen was exactly what you said. The construction company actually no, they did need renovations and they didn't do it. So they didn't do the permits. They got the renovations done. They accidentally removed the load bearing wall because this person had not. They went cheap, didn't have experience
Mm-hmm.
in that, and couldn't identify what a load bearing wall was. Took it down and exactly what you said, ran off because they were like, oh shit, and
Yeah.
disappeared on them. So I'm actually glad you said that because that is true. Even like as especially I would say as me, like if you're me where you don't do the work yourself and maybe you're not like 100%, like I don't 100% know everything. I do say I have more knowledge, let's say, than the average because my husband does renovations and we do work on the business together, especially in the past we used to do it a lot more together. So I do know a little bit more, but I don't know as much as Giancarlo does. And so, like that, for my safety, permits are great because, or I mean, as a person that doesn't, because I mean, you know permits, so I feel like not really my safety because you know it, but for people who don't are hiring people, I feel like getting the permits is like that extra level of safety because at least you have that inspector checking that work and making sure, and even if you tell your contractor like, hey, we're going to do this with permits, you also see they kind of like, I think they kind of like, if they don't have experience, they may run away from it, right? Because they'll be like, I don't know how to do things to code, and they disappear.
Yeah, and give you their way. They'll help you out as much as possible to do it. They'll even give you like they could give you references. They can do whatever, but they're there to help you, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't do it to code, they will not pass you. And they don't want to keep coming back, back and back again for the same thing, right? Let's say for a vapor barrier, right? Like something simple. They're not going to keep coming back and coming back, because if so, from I've heard from a couple other contractors, they've had the issue. They did something, they didn't do it to code. Inspector came, caught them on it, right? Before the inspector's coming, you call them within 2-3 days, the inspector will come in. If you do that, then it takes 4 days. Then you don't do it again. You don't do it right again. It's going to take a little longer because then you're no longer the priority because they know you're not doing it right. So then I mean, I can't say that for all inspectors, but I know it's happened with a friend of mine. You know, like he learned his lesson quick, right? After that, he's like, no, no, he's like, I'm gonna ask questions. And even with me, like, you know, sometimes I don't know, and then I'll reach out to the inspector, I'll reach out to the engineers, right? We had with the Toronto flip that we did, right? I was back and forth to the engineer quite a bit because there's some stuff that I'd never done before, and you know, that we subbed out, but I still wanted to know how it's done and how it's done properly, because I can't just take the word of, you know, somebody else and be like, oh yeah, no, this is how it's done, because at the end of the day, it's our project and it's my name on the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
But get your permits. Yeah, get your permits. They're there to help you. And they're awesome people. I mean, for them, I've never had an issue with any inspector, to be honest with you. On the contrary, they've always been. And people tell me I'm lucky, but I don't know. They've always been awesome with me. So
And explain why they're awesome with you, because there is some things that you do for why. I mean, and maybe you forget, but I like it came into my mind. Why are the inspectors nice with you?
So I mean, like, we go above and beyond always, right? I do go above and beyond. I had one inspector come in our Tilsonburg property when we were doing the ceiling height to the stairs was like maybe about like 5.5 feet, and the inspector Howard, he's like, I don't know, maybe like 7 feet, 7'2", something like. The guy's a monster. He's huge, right? Like he instead of like picking up the smoke alarms, he just looks at them like this, right? So he told me, he's like, oh, you know what? You know, it's the house is built like this. It's fine. If you could just raise it, you know, 1/2 foot, right? That way you don't, you know, like most people would just have to duck in. And I told him, like, yeah, no problem, Howard. But I looked at it after, like, you know, after he left, I looked at it, and I'm like, why go 1/2 feet if I can go up 4 feet? So what I did is I went up 4 feet, right? So that now if you want to bring a mattress or a couch or whatever, there's easy peasy, goes right in. And when he came in, he was like, oh, wow. He's like, you know, he's like, yeah, you went above and beyond. And I was like, yeah, you know, whatever. It happened. A year went by, a year, 2 years go by. And then we had a couple of issues with the Tilsonburg house. And when he came in, he remembered me right away. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember you, right? And like he knew right away because we went, like, everything that he asked for, we went above and beyond. And he remembered us, and like he gave us no issues, nothing, right? Like every time we call him, he never gives us any problems, nothing, right? Just because we do go above and beyond.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point, especially if you did like from the beginning, like if they make an extra request for something, and usually they'll do it at the beginning, and you just do that one thing, they're pretty just chilled for the rest, especially if you're very good at doing things to code and stuff like Giancarlo is. They notice those things, and they just make your life so much easier going forward. So I just wanted to emphasize that because I think that's like that. People say you're lucky. No, it's you. You have good people skills. Like you know how to please people and make them happy. You know, which I think is a very important thing in our line of work. It's so important to be able to make sure that just like you're like making everyone happy and like being able to, you know, like don't piss people off and they won't piss you off.
Well, listen, if someone has the power to hold your property over you and says, I'm not passing it and you're not opening, when they say jump, you just say how high, right? You jump, right? You don't ask questions, just do it. Because again, like they're telling you for a reason, right? You know, like if ESA comes in and says, you know, oh, you got to put a plug here. And I'm like, well, I already know it's the code, but I don't say that to them. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll put it in there. Where do you want it exactly? Like, tell me, and I'll go over the tape measure, and I'll be, okay, you want it at 5 foot 6 inches? No problem. 5, 6 inches it is, right? And we'll put it. I mean, what's it going to cost? An extra, you know, $20 in wire and a plug to make the inspector happy, right? It's kind of a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer. Just, you know, keep them happy. They keep you happy, and then the project goes along smoothly, and then that way you can get in and move on to the next one. Because
100%.
Yeah, cause especially with investor product, like the reason why I like working with investors now is because there's a tight deadline, and it helps you to move along, right? Instead of like, you know, with homeowners, sometimes it's like, oh, you know, they take a week to pick one color and then a week to pick another one, and then a 1 month project will last, you know, 3 months. With investors, it's more like, you know, like we know what we want, right? And some of them that I work with are like, they're like, here's the money, make it look nice, right? And I'll be like, perfect, right? So like, I mean, I'll still go over colors and whatnot with them, It's a different mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never make your investor properties, never take it to heart, right? Like don't believe like, that it's going to be your home, right? Don't treat it like your home. Treat it like an investor property.
Mm-hmm. And I think that now talking about that, actually, the difference between contractors, because I do feel like this was an issue for you coming into like at the
It was.
investor world, was the actually being within a budget. I think was hard because you were used to clients that actually, like I mean, the client mentality is very different. They're like the budget is 50K, and then all of a sudden they're blowing it like an extra 20K on like all these little knickknacks and stuff because they want the home to be exactly what they
Yeah.
want. Where so I felt like that was a bit of a learning curve for you. You're like, oh, we have a budget and we actually stick to this.
Yeah. That was and luckily that first project was with you because you were like, stay on the budget. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, what budget? Don't worry about the budget, right? You're like, what do you mean? What do you think? You have to stay on the budget. I'm like, now I'm like, okay, stay on the budget.
Yeah. I got him in line for you guys. So if you guys want
Yeah.
to use him, I've got him in line. He understands investors now.
Now I'm like now I'm trying to get like under budget, right? I'm like, let's do it under budget, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like that, like if things are going over budget, it's not because of like changes of like colors or whatever, like accessories. It's like things happen, like that. For example, in the Hamilton project, like it was the delays with the owner moving things, the previous owner having to move their furniture around and get all these things done and he had like health issues and stuff. So things were very slow, right? Sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. Why was I saying that?
You're just saying that for the like just to working as a like working the team and the delays, right? Like unexpected delays and going over
Oh
budget.
yeah. So the kind of delays that we have, or like that people have in the investor world, aren't usually like the add-ons and things like that, because it's a budget and that's what it is, right? It's not about. So it's about like unforeseen things that will come up, or this is what it should be, like, because this is also even a problem with investors, new investors, right? Like exactly what you said. Actually, you said this, right? A new investor comes in and they want to make it like their own. They over bling it out to like the top of the tops. Like they want to be super, super proud of this. And then all of a sudden you're selling it, you're refinancing, you're doing whatever. And then you realize you just went over budget and you didn't get the money back that you wanted to. Because that's another thing actually I noticed, for example, is that as an investor on the outside not doing the renovations, it's very easy to say yes to an extra $100 of this, yes to an extra $100, $250 of this, and you're like, oh, these accessories are an extra like $500, and it's gonna make my house look pretty. Let's do it. Like that's where I think where people get caught in is these little extras, right? And they think, oh, it's just a little this, a little that, and then all of a sudden you've hit, you've
Well,
blown your
and
budget, right?
I'm pretty sure like you can vouch for this. Like know your market, right? Like you have to know your market. If you're doing, you you could put marble on your floors. That's fine, but you got to be doing a luxury home, right? You got to be doing a luxury flip. You can't do you can't put marble on a property that's not within that market, right? If it's like if you're doing a quick flip or like in a low income area, you can't do those things, right? So you have to know your market, and that's very important when you're doing do your research. Look at other
Mm-hmm.
houses, right? I mean, even we do that, right? Like we'll look at other houses. We'll go on MLS. We'll like, oh yeah, let's see how they did their like what's their color scheme, because you'd be surprised. Some like areas actually have like different color schemes. Uh, some people like for example the Hamilton house. It was all like wood interior. Everybody likes to do wood in that area for some reason. And you go to other areas and it's like it's all white, right? Like no wood. It's just all drywall or plaster, right? So you have to know your market. Yeah, it's very important as an investor, and I tell that to all my clients, whether they're investors or not. Know your market, right? Because you need to know if you're going to be putting, like I said, laminate or luxury,
Luxury
mosaic
market.
or whatever, right? Or marble, right? And please don't put laminate in your house, but just do vinyl, right? Especially in the basements. I see it all the time. Like don't put laminate, don't cheap out. Spend the extra buck. Just put vinyl. It looks just as good, and it'll last you forever.
Mm-hmm. And just I wanted to actually reiterate on your point that you were talking about for not overdoing things, because I think Hamilton was a good example of what we did doing that, where we did not finish the basement. All we did was fix it. We waterproofed, or we, Giancarlo, waterproofed and made sure that we weren't, because it was like, that thing was leaking like a sieve. That basement. So he fixed and waterproofed the basement, but we did not finish it because when we looked in the area for when we saw basements being done, the value add to it didn't make sense. We were actually going to be spending more money to get this thing finished. It was kind of like to say, like, we're going to spend $1 to get the renovation done, but we would be getting around 70 cents back. So we'd actually be losing money of it. It wasn't worth it. In that area, the value for having a basement done wasn't worth the cost. So it's like these kind of things you want to actually understand the area. Like it's a lot, there is lots of analysis that gets done, and I want to emphasize how important it is, especially in the environment we're getting into or that we are in, that it's very important to really understand like what you're doing and or asking questions. I mean, you don't need to know everything because none of us know everything, but even like in the Facebook groups, like, hey, I'm planning to do this in this area or doing this, like, what are your thoughts, you know?
Talk to your communities, right? I mean, talk to your communities and talk to the people you know. Talk to your fellow investors, talk to your fellow friends, and you know, kind of get you know, call you, right? and then talk to you because you like to do the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Or like I always tell them, you know, like give me a call, right? I mean, I could tell you, you know, what materials to use or where to find them or you know, like I always have no issues doing any of that stuff with anybody, right? Even if it's not my project, I get calls all the time from different people. You know, my contract is doing this. What do you think, right? And I mean, again, I don't know everything, and I have my set views on certain things. So I would tell them, like, in my personal opinion, this is what I think would be done, right? Other people have their own opinions, and they would like to do things the different way, and they're just as hard-headed as I am. So you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but at least you know, get informed, right, and ask questions, which is very important.
100%. And I think so. We'll also talk now more about the owner and other things that happen. Because I think in the renovations, I think we've covered everything, the major points, right? Or was there any final other things that you wanted to say?
No. I mean, for the renovation, it was just basic stuff, right? I mean, like I said, the grinds, it was more of a nuisance just to try to work around, because it's not that they were doing it like it became to a point where like they were doing it like maliciously, right? Like it wasn't just being like, oh, you know what, I can't because my back hurts. No, because like we offered numerous different ways to help, and they just didn't want to do it because they did not want to move out, right? They weren't paying anything. They weren't, you know, like they didn't want to move out. So it got to the point where it's kind of malicious, and then yeah, like I mean, we had the police show up what 3 times to that property.
Two, 3 times,
Two or
yeah.
3 times, yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. It was quite the reno, I must say.
Yeah, that one did have drama. But talking about that, for example, though, let's say when it came down to, so when actually these things are happening, yeah, like that, like the previous owner and Giancarlo were doing this, and basically a wall came up. And I think from both
Hmm.
sides, nothing was happening. And that's when I had to come in, and I had to come in to like soothe, and like figure out, because I was just like, this is a project. We need to get moving. We need to have some kind of solution. And like that's something that I want to, also a reason why I stay to say far from the project. Like I don't really, I mean, me and Giancarlo know how each other work. So we've been doing this for 9 years. So I understand like the quality of work and everything. So I don't need to be there. Like I don't need to babysit, because we know each other so well. But um, but for me, like if I'm, and sorry, the point I'm getting at is me not being there I do it for a purpose. I do it for the reason that I don't want the neighbors to get to know me very close, or for example, in this case, the previous owners. And the reason I do that is for fresh eyes, for exactly when this is happening, right? If there is an issue where, I need to like help out, normally it's a lot easier for me to go in and talk when he has never spoken to me about these problems, and he's going to start over, and he's not going to come in with that anger, because I'm coming in with, what is the issue, how can I help, I don't know what's going on, like kind of playing dumb, like, let me hear your side of the story, I don't understand what's going on. And this kind of helps to diffuse the problem, because then like the anger isn't there, because he's just like, okay, I need to like explain to her what's going on, and I need to tell like my side of the story, right? And so I think with that really helped out, because like that we did have a bit of a standstill for a few days, or maybe that week where we had, but in that week I used that week to figure things out and help it, and like that, like we were able to get the project started again. I don't know, in that time, is that when we cleared out the full house? We finally got the house cleared out? Or or I think we're still in the middle of the project.
Yeah, no, we're still in the middle of the project. Like there was, I mean, it's what you were saying is you came in at like neutral ground, right? So it helped kind of speed things along. But so what it did is we were able to get the den and the second floor fully cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, fighting again to get the stuff out of the house, and then fighting again. Like every floor, it was like a different fight, right? Like to get stuff out of the house, like every floor was like a different fight with this guy.
Not a fight though, as in like
you know what I mean?
work, right? It was no. I'm like making sure people understand
That's
when
true.
we by fight. It wasn't like a fight was actually happening. It was more like just pulling teeth. Okay, because I would be like, once we get one clean, like it was like negotiating to get the next one, and I'm trying to get this next area clean. So hoping that by the time Giancarlo's done the cleared out area, the next one would be done. But normally that's what our delays was, because he would be done, but we wouldn't be done clearing the next place. So it was like pulling teeth to get things, and things were very slow.
Mm-hmm.
But because again of my distance, for example, when we went, so we wanted to formally evict him, and so for example, I remember you were like very skeptical about him leaving, and I don't know why I had the confidence in like it's gonna get signed to get done, because at that point his stuff was still there, but he had already moved out, or he physically out. So we just wanted to formalize it and do it, because now at that point we were actually going to get ready to get the rest of the stuff that didn't fit in that back storage area. All the rest of it was going to go into storage units, which we were going to pay for. And like not forever. Like he gave his information, and we guaranteed 2 months of storage for him to, again, have the time to figure out what he was going to do. And like that, because I was able to maintain a good relationship, or not even, we did have even in ourselves, because like that, because of the clash between him and Giancarlo, it did come back at me, but because of that distance, I was able to, like, it didn't last very long, or I was able to soothe it quicker because I wasn't in it.
Well,
because
you went, yeah, like you say how I go above and beyond. You were going above and beyond with this guy as well, right? So
yes.
you were kind of Switzerland of all this, right? Because you were like in the middle, right, not taking sides, and trying to get the
it was all about the peace. Yeah. I'm like, we need to maintain the peace, and that was like my mission in this project, was maintaining the peace, and like that, trying to satisfy Giancarlo and make sure that him and his team can get what they need done, but also making sure that the previous owner was feeling validated and feeling like we're trying to work with him too. So that was like my main goal. I wanted to make sure that he understood I was working with him and trying to help him solve the problems. So when I came in, and I could tell you, I didn't tell this guy that I was coming in to sign the eviction. I wanted to tell him in person that we were getting this done. And he was already aware of this happening. So he knew the process we were going through. He knew that like he needed to get out. And so it wasn't a surprise, but again, I wanted to go in person and get him to sign it and talk to him about it. And like that, it was, and it's funny actually, a point that he specifically told me when he signed everything and got everything done, he says like, here, here everything's done. And he's like, see, I'm easy to work with, right? So, and I found it really funny that he said that because, like, it was just like that, like usually it's, the understanding their side really helps out in really making, like, I think the validation and helping him like feel like I was on his side helped a lot to make that eviction happen. Like there was no fighting, there was no anything. We actually, the way I came in, we were chit-chatting about like some business stuff that he was doing, and then I just showed him like, this is the paperwork for the termination, and we're just formalizing it. But I know you're already out, but I just wanted to formalize it, and like that, he was just like, he signed everything, we filled everything out, like no issues with the termination. And so I thought that was like, I felt like we were like, wow, that's like I felt like that was like a very huge win for us, because at least we knew now for sure legally we weren't going to have problems with that, especially now because we were getting very close to the sale or finishing. Because at that time when we did the eviction, that was also, we were going to get ready to move everything out, right? That was like around the same time. Yeah, we needed to clear out the house because we were going to start the staging. And also you needed to start the final things with, we needed to paint the whole house. So we needed the house to be empty. I think that was the main reason, right? The final thing was painting, I believe. And then like cleaning the floors and whatever. So we needed to clear everything out. And like that, because of the delays of just getting his stuff moved into the storage, we took it upon us. We waited to the last minute to just move out the rest of the stuff to the storage, and we took care of we were there at night, grabbing everything, packing it up, and we hired the movers. The movers came, and as we were packing, they were putting, and they put everything in the storage for us, and then so we had everything cleared out. So and like that, I mean, he knew this, and like that, things got easier because he's like, I think because he felt that I was in his side, to be honest, is what helped him be okay with this. And like that, I mean, when we came in, we had a plan. He knew what was going to happen. It's just, again, like exactly what you're saying, Giancarlo, right? Like he did not want, like he was probably still having a hard time realizing that like he's not going to have this, he's not going to be living in this house.
Yeah. So
and like that.
Yes. So I think like, I mean, he was a very smart gentleman. He knew all the steps. He knew all, like he knew everything that he was doing and that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew how to delay it, and he knew how to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why there was so much, bumping heads and stuff is because like he was making me tardy on my timelines, and you know me, like I like to get there on time and finish stuff on time. And then on top of that, I was working against you, and I'm like, no, that's my wife, right? I'm like, don't mess with my wife, right? I mean, you can mess with me all you want, but don't mess with my wife. So I'm like, and then for like it's not that I never yelled at him. I'd never, we never got into a yelling match or anything. It's just that like I would get upset and I walk away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't resolve anything by yelling. So like if I get upset, I walk away. I'm like, yeah, come back in a day, and then we'll try it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was getting upset because I thought that he was trying to pull one over on you, and
Yeah.
that was my main issue of like with that. And
Yes.
it would take a little bit longer to do than what it should have, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, once everything got done and over with, it was great, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm. And that was another good point that you said, and I think for couples working together, that is actually a great point. That like I think, for example, if you were doing another project for someone else, I don't think you would have that I don't think you would have, to be honest, cared about the delays. You've been like, let me know when the place is empty and I'll come back in a month. But because it was our project, and like you said, that was the main reason. Like I felt like, you felt that I was being taken advantage of, and obviously because we're together, you want me to like the best for me.
Of course.
And so that is, I feel like that is the really something to also pay attention to. I think when it's like when you're working together as couples working together, it is, it sometimes does get hard even in that sense because, like that. I mean, especially, you get defensive as someone, or you see someone being taken advantages that you love. That's just like gonna hit a nerve. Whereas like that, if you were in the same situation with someone else, I don't think you would have cared at all. You would have been like, let me
It's
know
not that
when
I
the
wouldn't.
house is empty, and then
Yeah, it's not that I wouldn't have cared, but I would have gone it about completely different, right? I would have been like either first, me and my guys are gonna come in, we're gonna grab all this stuff, put it on the curb, not my problem. I need to get this done, or call me when everything's out, and then I'll come in and do it, right? I
yeah,
wouldn't have been like, oh, okay,
it was
well
less
today
investor
we'll
kind of,
work in this room, and then tomorrow we'll work in that room, and we'll work around you. I wouldn't have done any of that,
yeah.
because like time is money, and time is precious. And like I could be doing another job or something different, but it's it was definitely a learning experience, and I'm glad that it actually happened to us because we learned a lot from that, right? And I'm pretty sure you agree with me, Diana, because we did learn quite a bit, and now we're super careful because like we don't want to go through all that again, right? But everything happens for a reason, and like I always tell I tell our investor friends, people that have made mistakes before. I'm like, we all do it, right? I mean, you're a veteran on this kind of stuff. I've been doing renovations forever, and we still have things that happen, right? Nothing's perfect. You just gotta hop over that hump, and then just continue on the next one, right?
And to be honest, though, we purposely pick these hard kind of projects, or at least I do. And, like I purposely pick these kind of projects. I know you don't like it that I pick these kind of, well, I mean, you like the harder projects renovation-wise, but I purposely actually pick these harder projects because like that, we got a great purchase price because of all the concessions we had to make. We knew he was going to be living there for free for some time. We knew that like storage, we'd have to be doing storage. We knew he didn't have money. So all this stuff was taken into consideration into the purchase price. And it's just like these kind of like, yes, they're hard to deal with, but you make good profits out of them because you're having to bring down the value to, for example, like that, like our estimated time, which I forgot to say at the beginning, the estimated time, we expected this to be in and out in 6 months. And the renovations were only supposed to be a month. They, I think, went to 2 months because of the delays, or maybe 2.5 months. I can't
2.5.
remember.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah. But it was supposed to be, I think, like a 1 month or 1.5 month project, right? Yeah. So there was like that doubled the time in their renovations, and it doubled the time of, we ended up holding that for like exactly,
A
I think a
year.
year and one
A year.
month or something, or 2 months. Like, so, and that was delays from the owner. But again, for example, like I did expect difficulties to happen because we knew that he was going to be staying there, and because we also did some like contractual stuff to help to give him opportunities to buy back the property. So these kind of things we allowed him the first right of refusal to buy back his property. But then, and we learned a lot about contracts because of that, because this guy is a wizard at contracts. He does businesses, and again, this happened to be just a downturn in his business that just COVID, everything hit at once, and he was losing the property. But this guy is very well, like he's an accountant, so very well versed in numbers, very well versed in law because he's a businessman. So like he taught us a lot about contracts and how to how he delayed things. Like now I feel like we're experts in now what we put in contracts to make sure that we have, for example, time frames for everything we do. We didn't really have these like such like time frame. We had like vague time frames, but not like other little things we didn't have time frames for, which, for example, in the future, if I ever have to do something contractual, like a time frame for the appraisal getting done.
Time frame
We
for
didn't have that.
responses, right? A
Pardon?
time frame for a response, right?
It's timings for responses. Yeah. So that was like a whole learning experience. And like that with all these delays, a 1 year delay, we hit right in like the down of the market, and we still came out winning because I was conservative with numbers. We took into consideration that this was very new to us, and in the sense of like we never dealt with this kind of contract that he wanted. We knew he was going to be staying at the house, so something there was the worry that he may try to squat, or there may be delays. Like, I did expect him to actually give us delays because he was very attached to this property. This property was like something that he didn't want to let go. So there were a lot of things that I was taking into consideration, and all these things count for the purchase price being lower too, let alone just a flip being super expensive.
Yeah.
Any final words, anything that you'd like to end off and letting the viewers know and on this project or about yourself?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's the more I get involved with your community and that kind of stuff with investors, the more I like it. So if you're gonna do if you're gonna do a deal, whether it's a flip, a burr, that's right, I know the lingo now, right? If you're gonna be doing any of that kind of stuff, reach out to your friends, reach out to people your co-investors, people that you invest with, or people that have been doing this for a while. Reach out to contractors. Don't just get a quote for one guy. Get a couple of quotes. I know my wife doesn't like it when I tell my customers that, but I tell all my customers, I'm like, don't just get my quote, right? Get another couple of quotes, and then and please don't go for the cheapest guy, because you will pay for it, and you will double pay for it at the end, because then you're gonna have to call me back to rip out what they did, and then I gotta fix it.
And he doesn't
yeah,
like doing other people's work or redoing other people's work. That's his pet peeve.
Yeah, I don't like fixing other stuff. But no, yeah, reach out to your community, know your markets, right? Know what you're investing in. Don't, like my slogan is, making you fall in love with your home again. This is not your home, right? This is, it's going to be somebody else's home. So don't go crazy, right? Know your market. Now, if it's your home, go crazy, do what you want, right? But yeah, I mean, other than that, just reach out to your communities and talk to people, right? I mean, it's that's how you learn, right? You learn by other people's mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Like I said, we make mistakes all the time, right? But we just kind of and the main thing is I would like to say is don't let if you've made a mistake or whatever, don't let it bum you out, right? Like it's stuff happens, right? Just brush it off and go move on to the next one, because that's what we got to do, right? Live the dream.
Yeah, and also I think that's a great point. And just to end that off is, because if you just let that problem bum you out and you're gonna stall it and not move forward, that could be very detrimental. So it's just like always just staying in solution mode is the way to be in this industry. If you're investing, you want to be in that solution mindset. So thank you so much, Giancarlo, for sharing our project with everyone, with the community. If you guys love what you heard from Giancarlo, he'll be tagged on this. You'll be able to follow him and see what he's up to. And if you love watching my shows, then you should definitely be following me, because then you'll always get notified on when the shows come up. And you can just see what we're up to. So thanks so much, Giancarlo, for coming on.
No, not a problem. And then, I mean, I promise maybe I'll start using, were we on Instagram? Maybe I'll start using Instagram, because if you follow me, I don't know if I have anything on there, because I never use it. Because I am, yeah, like Diana does all the computer stuff. I'll build you a house, I'll build you a car, but I can't figure out this thing right here. So,
so maybe you should follow him, and it'll force him to actually start posting.
Yeah, maybe.
Or
Yeah,
just follow me and I can always tell you what's going on with him.
that's even better. That way it's less work for me.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Bye, Giancarlo.
Bye, guys. Bye.